Hello and welcome back to Cargo Cafe. As always, I'm your host, Libby Hausman, and today I'm joined with Riley Wiles again. Got him back in the studio here to talk about some ocean freight.
Yeah, feels good to be back on the cafe. Loving the format. Got my coffee mug since it's a cafe. Excited about the topic today.
Yeah,
and our guy coming in to speak.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. We definitely got the best of the best here today. Before we get into that, we wanted to take some time to highlight some organizations that Bestway has been able to help out with and be involved with in the Kansas City area. A couple weeks ago, we were able to go to the Children's Place Fundraiser Gala, which was a really great experience for us. We got to sponsor a table and see some real philanthropy in action. If you have not already checked out that organization, I definitely recommend it. They do incredible work in the Kansas City area, and we are just really honored to have been a part of that event. We also are helping out with Jackson County CASA coming up. They have their annual Light of Hope breakfast next week, which we're super excited about. We have a team of people going to help work out with that event. Another really, really good organization in the area. I'll be putting a link in my follow-up email for anyone who attends today if they're interested in checking out those organizations. We would really recommend it, and we've had a lot of fun working with them, and just really want to push that message because they do such incredible work for our community. Before we get into this, we're going to be talking about ocean freight procurement today, which is a great topic, especially this time of year as kind of contract season's coming around. But we are well aware that there are other topics that are hot on people's minds right now, and that is this ever-changing tariff situation. So I reached out to our Vice President, Jack, who's been on the show before. He's also a licensed custom broker, and I had him give me just kind of a tariff update of where things stand as of right now, which, as we all know, could fully be changed by the end of this presentation. But wanted to get it out of the way at the beginning. Here is an update on where things stand as of right now. There is the 10% flat reciprocal tariff on most products globally, regardless of the country of origin. This is for all countries except for China, and it is an additional country-specific tariff that has been suspended. The additional country-specific tariffs have been suspended until July 9th while those negotiations take place. And it is this, so just the 10% flat tariff is additive to any other duties and taxes that are already there on products, again, for all countries except for China. Now, for China, they have a 125% reciprocal tariff on most of their products, with exemptions for certain tech products and semiconductors. This includes the 20% IEEPA tariffs on the total tariff amount on most Chinese products, bringing it to at least around 145%. There's currently no timetable in place on reducing or eliminating these tariffs, but as always, we'll keep you updated as things change as we learn more.
Yeah, great update from Jack there. I like your comment. That is ever changing. Definitely a good time to stay in touch and a great time to talk with Ethan about how that's impacting pricing and sea rates right now.
So without further ado, we're going to bring Ethan out. He's our pricing manager at Bestway International, and he's been with us for about 3 years, and he has a total about 7 years of industry experience. He's definitely the person you want to be talking to right now about this type of stuff. So we'll bring him out and we'll get into it today.
Hey everyone. Firstly, just thanks for having me. This is really exciting to be able to come out here and talk about the super exciting world of ocean rates and ocean procurement. So on the agenda today, we have industry consolidation and new alliances. We're going to briefly touch on current disruptions and geopolitical events that have an effect on global trade. We're going to discuss the pros and cons of both BCO and NVOCC contracts. We'll cover how automated spot quotes can fit into contracted rates and how we should play with those in order to create the most efficient booking environment. What to expect in the future, and then lastly, critical data points that all cargo owners should have knowledge of. So very excited to get into this, and we can go ahead and get it started.
Yeah, and as always, if you have questions, please put them in the comments below. We'll make sure to address them but for sure by the end of the show or kind of as they come up. So please put those comments in the section below.
Perfect. Thank you, Libby. So industry consolidation and new alliances. Pre-COVID, we had about 14 global carriers. We're now down to 9 global carriers. The restriction in global carriers is going to create an environment where they have a little bit more power. And with the update to alliances, many carriers are switching from a direct port service to a hub and spoke model. So previously with the direct port service, you were having less transshipping, more direct port to port or point to point. Currently with the hub and spoke model, you're going to have a lot more transshipping, which has an opportunity to create a bottleneck or a backlog at the major transshipment hubs. So that's something that we need to keep an eye out for. And also something that the third point here, blank sailings as well, can tie into. So blank sailings pre-COVID, they were mainly applied seasonally outside of peak season. Now they're seemingly being used as a tool to more or less manipulate the market in an effort to raise spot rates when spot rates are in a less favorable point for ocean carriers. And if the market falls to or falls close to the fixed rate market, then we're going to see an increase in blank sailings in order to bolster those spot market rates in the carrier's favor.
Interesting. Ethan, do you have any examples of who's fallen off? Going from 14 global carriers to 9 in the last 5 years is super interesting.
Yeah. So carriers that you guys might recognize or have been shipping with in the past that might not be around anymore. MOL, Hanjin, and K-Line are no longer active. APL is more of a niche transatlantic carrier, and then NYK Lines is pretty much ro-ro only now. So they're more specialized in the ro-ro industry.
Interesting.
Awesome. So disruptions in geopolitical events. This is definitely the hot topic right now, as Libby hinted on earlier. First being a potential global trade war, which creates a lot of uncertainty in the market and is causing some importers, particularly importers who have a large amount of volume out of China, to kind of place a pause if that's in their interest. And so that can create a situation where if the floodgates open, so to speak, and there is a resolution, we could face a scene where we have a space scarcity and really we're going to see higher spot rates and much less space out there available as everyone rushes to get their bookings if and when there is a resolution to the current tariff environment. And with those current tariff environment and the changing regulations, it just creates a lot more of a difficult to navigate environment for clearance. It makes identifying landed costs, which is a huge thing for importers, makes that very, very difficult. Especially when you plan for landed cost while tariffs are at maybe 15 or 20%, and then by the time your cargo goes to ship, it's at 125%. So that can make landed cost identification very difficult. You also have pirating in the Suez Canal. It stuck around a little bit more than we thought it would originally. And so a lot of carriers are still sailing around the Cape of Good Hope, which is creating longer transit times, higher fuel surcharge fees, and therefore just overall higher ocean rates on those routes. That's also going to put more wear and tear on the vessels that carriers are using. So more wear and tear, more maintenance, unfortunately, generally higher rates for the consumer. Drought and natural disasters, we've always had, they're always going to be around. It's always going to have an effect on international trade and cause slight disruptions. Fortunately, we're used to the global weather patterns such as drought for the Panama Canal, and it tends to come and go. Currently, the drought is less of an issue than it was previously, so we hope to always see those water levels at the right height.
Yeah, those are some good points. There's things that are out of our control that affect our industry every day. And I think the most important thing there is just keeping an eye on what's going on and being aware of the different factors that come into play with this type of industry and global trade in general.
Couldn't agree more, Libby. So here we have BCO contracts, and BCO contracts is going to be a beneficial cargo owner contract. It is basically when a consignee directly contracts with an ocean carrier. There are some benefits, there are some negatives too. So you're going to get lower rates with that particular carrier, of course, based on space and availability. So should we see major market changes like we saw during COVID, those rates tend to go out the window. If a carrier can book at a significantly higher rate in the spot market, it's just not in their best interest to give those bookings away to a BCO contract owner at a significantly lower rate. So when we see the market changes, and if all you have is a BCO contract, it can be very difficult to get space without having to jump into the spot market and fight to the pay battle to get space. So that kind of brings us to MQC. MQC is going to be the minimum quantity commitment. Every time you sign a contract with a carrier, there's going to be some type of minimum quantity commitment required in order for you to negotiate the rates with the contract holder. Depending on your volume, as a BCO, you can be pigeonholed into one or two different carriers if you don't have the volume to guarantee to multiple different carriers, or if you do guarantee volume to carriers but don't meet your MQC, you're putting yourself at risk for enforcement of dead freight, which is unfortunately something that we might see more in the future than we're currently seeing now. Managing surcharges, PSS, BAF can be a little bit difficult unless you have an in-house logistics specialist as a BCO. Managing those surcharges and understanding how and when they'll apply can be a little bit cumbersome. You really need to have a logistics expert in-house in order to be able to wrap your mind around when those are going to be occurring, how it's going to affect your landed costs, and how you could book early or front load to avoid that if necessary. Lastly, allocation management. So when you book direct under a BCO, based on your MQC given, you'll have allocations given by the carrier to meet that MQC. Basically, it's the number of bookings you're allowed to make on a weekly or monthly basis. Unfortunately, managing those allocations is quite difficult, and getting space on your preferred vessels can be difficult as well. So having somebody either in-house or having a freight forwarding partner that manages that for you is definitely in the BCO owner's best interest, to make sure that they're getting the space that they need to get their goods here on time, as well as booking on the contract in an efficient manner to where you're meeting your MQC and not going to be stuck at the end of the day facing dead freight on your contract.
Yeah, those are all great points. Just for my own education, I'm a little bit curious, in your opinion, do you think that BCO contracts are becoming less effective in today's volatile market?
I wouldn't necessarily say less effective, but they're definitely something where if you are a BCO holder, you want to have an NVO partner as well. If you only hold a BCO contract and are only booking with one or two carriers in this environment, you can easily find yourself trapped where you are unable to get space with your preferred carriers and are pretty much stuck in the spot market without any help. If you don't have an NVO partner there to pick up the slack in the spot market and help you book, or allow you to book on their contracts instead to get that space that you're hurting for, especially at the rate that you need, I would say that managing a BCO contract could be very difficult in the coming future. And having an NVO partner or a freight forwarder partner that's in your corner is going to be more important than ever.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. And it kind of just goes back to, at the end of the day, the best thing you can do for your supply chain is diversify it. And having a BCO and an NVOCC probably goes hand in hand with that.
Absolutely. Diversification right now is the key to the game. So we've been throwing around the acronym NVOCC. So what is an NVOCC, right? It's a non-vessel operating common carrier. It's basically a freight forwarder who owns their own contracts. So there's a lot more flexibility on the freight forwarder's end. They get the ability to pool their clients' volumes together and create an environment where they can get better buying rates and can manage MQCs with multiple carriers due to pooling multiple clients' volumes together. You're going to have less enforcement of volume commitments because your NVO partner, your freight forwarder, is standing in on the risk. Part of the risk of creating a BCO contract is managing your MQC, making sure that you meet your own commitments to the carrier in the same way that they're supposed to meet their commitments to you. Oftentimes that battle tends to be a little one-sided. And so having an NVOCC in your corner to help navigate those difficult waters, to help book when you book on the spot market when you need it, and to have multiple different carriers to go to have an ability to book with, will really help to create a more favorable outcome for the cargo owner.
Yeah, I think I heard your your answer in there. We had some questions come in before we started the Cargo Cafe, but I just want to make sure we get this one answered because this is definitely the slide. What advantages do NVOCCs offer in managing ocean freight during uncertain times? If you can just...
It's a great question. So it is something we kind of glanced on here. Basically, the NVO is going to be in your corner with helping you manage allocations, go to multiple carriers, leverage their partners' contracts as well as their own, and ultimately just be there to educate and assist with booking on the right vessels with the right carriers at the right time. It is definitely something that I would recommend having a freight forwarder on your side at this point.
Awesome.
Automation and online spot rates. So automation is something we're always going to see in this industry, and it's going to continue to grow. There are pros and there are cons. So when you go to look for automated spot rates, oftentimes you're getting a very quick price comparison. Sometimes those rates are paper rates, and that means that they're going to be lower than the current market average on occasion, unless they are actually vessel-specific rates for open space. Just the quick automated paper rate that you find online doesn't always reflect the current market in terms of space and capacity. Similar to if you own a BCO or NVO contract and the spot market is significantly higher than your contract, the carrier will accept the higher rate over the lower rate. Same thing in the spot market. If you see a rate that looks too good to be true, chances are that is subject to space and availability, and you're not actually going to get a booking on that rate. The other con can be that sometimes if they are vessel specific and connected to the open space available on the market, then that rate will be significantly higher. And if the market is right, then that rate will be significantly higher than contracted rates, because it's the rate for the space that's currently left on each vessel, and they're looking to fill that up at the highest rate possible.
Yeah, the term paper rates, I like that. That is just a rate on paper and doesn't necessarily come with getting your freight picked up and delivered.
Absolutely, and it looks really pretty on paper, but when it comes time to actually get things moving, it's a little flimsy.
Right.
All right, so when consolidation and disruption converge, what do we have happen? Ultimately, since right now we have fewer carriers dominating the market, you're going to have a narrowing of commercial strategies, and carriers are going to lean into the spot market. That being that they're going to look for those higher rates that we were talking about before, and anything that they can do to create those inflated spot market rates, they will certainly be looking to do. So basically, higher spot market rates, unfortunately, is going to be a product of disruption. And with the consolidation of carriers, we have less options to go to.
Yeah, so kind of building off what you just said there, with the continued consolidation and disruption, what are some long-term strategies you would recommend to procurement teams in order to kind of adapt and stay competitive in this current environment?
That's going to ring back to that note of having a freight forwarder on your side. This is one of the best times to have somebody in your corner to be able to look forward and see the disruptions, and ultimately create an environment where they're giving you the right strategy, where they can advise you which carriers to go with during certain times, and they can manage the risk of their own contracts to give you the leverage.
Yeah, when we recommend to people to keep an eye on the spot market versus the fixed market, can you give us some good resources on how people can do that besides just reaching out to their freight forwarder? Are there other ways, or is it just always being in constant communication?
There are tools out there that you can use online to search, but I would be hesitant to recommend using online automated tools. That just kind of comes back to one of the previous slides where those rates aren't necessarily reflective of the ever-changing market. Things can change so quickly that it's really good to have that constant, consistent communication. And in that communication, I'd like to stress that the best thing you can do is to communicate your outlook or your plans for the future. How many containers on a month-by-month basis on which lanes? If you can communicate that clearly and succinctly to your freight forwarding partner, that will give them the tools that are needed in order to advise and navigate for you. Without your ideal allocations or how much you're planning on shipping, it's very difficult to advise someone how to move forward without knowing how much cargo they're trying to move and when they're trying to move it. So knowing what you need and when you need it is absolutely necessary in this market. Hopefully there shouldn't be any confusion on how much cargo you currently have in the US and how much cargo you're needing to get in and when you need to get it in.
So when you have that information, like knowing how much cargo and when it's coming and when it needs to be here, are you able to kind of leverage those volumes when you're talking with carriers, when you're working as an NVOCC? Is there a benefit to having greater volume coming in?
There's a benefit to having more volume coming in, and there's a very, very real benefit to knowing when those volumes are going to be coming in. Oftentimes, we're booking out 3 to 4 weeks for our NVO contracts, and so planning is absolutely key. If we can let the carrier know ahead of time, more than that 3 to 4 week range, what we're going to be looking at and the bookings we're going to be creating, we can seek to add additional allocations to our plans to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our clients. It's very difficult to do that and to navigate those conversations with carriers without having the ammo, right? These are the vessels we need. This is the number of bookings I need on that vessel. Without having those specifics, it's very difficult to negotiate additional allocations or additional space on certain vessels.
Yeah, I guess it's true what they say, knowledge is power.
It absolutely is. Knowledge is 100% key in any negotiation.
Absolutely.
So what to expect? I mean, this is the $1 million question, right? I wish that we had clear and succinct answers on book at this time and book with this carrier, but unfortunately, what to expect is not necessarily a good thing. We're going to be seeing less priority on service because we have fewer carriers in the market, so there's less competition. We're probably going to see an increase in blank sailings. We've currently been seeing those on the rise. I think that they're actually about 30 to 40% on the Trans-Pacific eastbound lanes right now, depending on your carrier. And unfortunately, rising enforcement of contract commitments. So ultimately, carriers are aiming for an environment that's going to bode in their favor. And it is just, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, it's the best time ever to have an NVO on your side to help you navigate those waters. Pun intended.
So you don't have a date when we should stop and when we should move or anything like that?
That's the $1 million question as well.
Yeah.
I wish there was a clear answer, Riley. I really do. Unfortunately, It's going to come down to what is the value of your product, how much product you have in the U.S., what are your clients and customer needs, are you in peak season? There are so many different factors that can affect that decision for an importer that it truly is just a conversation that needs to be had with your partners. And giving your partners your outlook and your plans for the future in this time is going to help to create that relationship where they can really fight in your favor.
It's awesome. No cookie cutter answers.
I wish there was. I wish it was that simple, but unfortunately, in this environment, I don't think we're going to have any cookie cutter answers.
Yeah, so how would you say that blank sailings impact the cargo planning and supply chain reliability? You kind of have touched on that all throughout this whole thing, but specifically relating to blank sailings.
Yeah, so blank sailings are right now, and this is, I believe they're being used as a tool for market manipulation. So if you are planning, you need to know that any plan that you make is going to have some give in it. There will be times when your plans will change because of how often blank sailings are occurring. If you're betting on something sailing in April and it must sail in April, then you need to have that booking created 3 to 4 weeks in advance. You really need to be pushing out your outlook and ensuring that you're not booking the week before or trying to get on that last vessel that you really need to get on to get cargo here in time. Give yourself some wiggle room, give your freight forwarder a little wiggle room, and understand that there's just things that are going to be out there that are out of our control. Blank sailings are one of those things. The carrier gets to choose it, and unfortunately, we're all stuck with it.
That's the name of the game these days.
So these are going to be some points that every cargo owner just needs to know. And it's going to touch back on that the point to have these conversations with your freight forwarding partner and to really have that transparency and pass this information across. You need to understand the market, what's going on your trade lanes, the volume trends that you have, as well as just out there in the market, understanding peak seasons and how that can affect your cost. Definitely need to know delivery timeframes and be very transparent with those delivery timeframes to your freight forwarder and your partners. If we can plan out in advance to meet those delivery timeframes early, that would be definitely ideal. Cost per unit is always going to be important, but in this changing tariff environment, it is going to be even more important. Understanding your costs so that you can help to calculate your landed costs is absolutely necessary. I would also, to that point, during these changing tariff environments, working with your suppliers to either diversify or reduce your cost per unit is absolutely going to be in an importer's best interest. Route optimization is somewhat out of the importer's control, since routing is going to be controlled by the carriers, and we're seeing that carriers are switching away from the point-to-point service routings to the hub and spoke models. Understanding how those changes will fit into your transit times and how there's potential delays with the hub and spoke models, and having additional transshipment ports will really help to kind of dial in those delivery timeframes. So understanding how your route can be affected by delays, understanding and knowing when there's going to be backlog or bottleneck at transshipment ports will help to kind of just increase efficiency overall on the supply chain. Ooh, I love this point. Supplier reliability. Gosh, I wish we could get suppliers to always meet their cargo ready dates. That would just make everything so much easier. But it is very important to be in constant communication with your supplier about cargo ready dates. Understanding if there are delays with production will really help to, and then also communicating those delays to your forwarding partner will really help to ensure that when we're booking the right vessels. We're giving leeway for the pickup and ensuring that we can in-gate on time without missing a vessel. Nothing is worse than hearing that you just missed your cutoff for the vessel that you needed to make because your supplier did not have cargo ready the day they told you it would be ready. And finding that out after you've already planned to have cargo arrive on a certain time frame really throws a wrinkle into the efficiency of supply chains. And lastly, performance monitoring. KPIs are always important. Make sure that you have reporting with your freight forwarding partner. Make sure that you know when things are coming in, when things are delayed, and that there's a clear line of communication on any exceptions. If you're not going to hit your deadlines, if there's a roll on the vessel schedule, or if the CRD wasn't met, we definitely need to know about it. And that way we can kind of change things up. Maybe we could, or your freight forwarder partner could book on a premium booking if the cargo is highly needed. So performance monitoring on the supplier's end, the freight forwarder's end, and the carrier's end is something that is going to be extremely important in this kind of ever-changing market.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. I kind of look at this slide as like, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, make sure you have this slide down and you know all of those points. That's really going to get you ahead in the world of ocean freight and help you a little bit understand the procurement process. Because, you know, when you don't understand and you're trying to get things over, it can be a little tricky because there's lots of things to be considered. And so this slide I would highlight as most important if you take nothing else away from this.
Absolutely. And if you don't understand these points, copy and paste it and send it over to your freight forwarder, your partner, or send it over to us, and we can help to have those discussions on a more in-depth manner and assist with understanding these points.
Right, because while understanding this is of the utmost importance, you also have to remember, like we said earlier, it's never going to be a cookie cutter answer, and it kind of varies for every different shipper. You need to understand what works best for you, and that might not be what works best for other people. And unfortunately, while it would be easy to say, let's all just do this one system, that doesn't work that way. So got to be able to be flexible and have people in your corner that are willing to make tailored solutions for your specific needs.
That just hits the nail on the head. It is the ultimate time to have a tailored solution and an educated freight forwarding partner in your corner or on your side.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that brings us to the end of our presentation. I'm going to give people some time to throw some questions down in the chat. Doesn't have to be related to ocean freight procurement. We'd love to put Ethan on the spot for whatever type of pricing questions you have on the back end. Riley's also here. We'd love to answer whatever you want. Another great thing that I've been thinking about is I would love to have some recommendations on future topics, things we want to hear from you about what you want to talk about. That's what's most important to us. We can drone on and on about whatever any day of the week, but we like to know what our audience is interested in. So put some suggestions or questions down in the chat and we'll be sure to touch on those.
Yeah, other thing I would add is formatting. You guys liking the format? Seems we've changed it a few times. If there's a format that you guys have a suggestion on, we'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah, so while we're waiting for those questions and kind of comments to come in, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Ethan? Any last minute suggestions or advice you could give to shippers, specifically maybe small to medium sized shippers who don't have, huge amounts of volumes to leverage in this current market?
That is a great question. If you're a small or medium sized shipper and you're not a candidate for a BCO contract, it is imperative that you get with your freight forwarding partner and you discuss what is the spot market going to be like. Give them your forecast and what you're going to be importing across this next year, and make sure that you can put a plan together, like you said, a bespoke or a tailor-made plan that identifies issues that you're having or concerns that you have. Address it early. Make sure that you're very transparent in terms of your goals, and really just sit down with your freight forwarding partner and outline a plan for the future. I know that's very similar to what we've been echoing, but it's very important right now.
Awesome. Well, we'll give people a couple more minutes to get some of those comments and questions. And in the meantime, I kind of want to go back and touch on the tariff stuff we mentioned at the beginning. Looks like the next big deadline to keep an eye out for would be the 9th of July, that 90-day extension. We're waiting for some negotiations to come through. So if you are in a situation where you're kind of waiting to see what happens, that would probably be a date to keep in mind. As always, we'll keep information coming out as it is presented to us. We are here to be a resource for anyone who needs it, and always happy to help however we can.
Looks like nobody wants that $50 gift card for best question.
It's always on the line.
Always.
I'm going to have to start coming up with my own questions and taking all the gift cards.
Well, that seems like easy money right now because we don't have any questions. So best question would be the first question.
That's a great point. It's kind of a freebie right there. Low-hanging fruit.
I got a question,
It is.
Ethan. What should I do with all this energy from just pounding coffee during your presentation?
We know, Riley, I think the best thing to do would be to go sell freight.
I love it. And
Solution over.
yes.
Or you can read on tariff and HTS codes. There's a lot to read out there on that right now.
That's why we got you here on this presentation, Ethan, so I can not do that.
All right, well, if nobody has any questions or comments, I'll give it about 2 more minutes. But if you've gotten everything you need out of this presentation, be looking out for an email from me, and stay tuned for our next Cargo Cafe, which will be on May 21st. We're really excited to roll this one out. It's going to be a great show. I'm not going to announce the topic yet, but it is not because we don't know it for sure. We have great things lined up.
Come on, give the people what they want.
It's looking like it's going to be regarding domestic freight this time. We've been in a long stretch of talking about international, but as things are kind of moving and shifting, there are lots to talk about with domestic freight, ground freight in general, going into Mexico and Canada, crossing the border. There's lots to say on that. You want to touch on that at all?
No, super excited. I would tease it, but I'm sure just like today's topic, that is going to change quite a bit between now and May 21st.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to say something today that's going to make me look dumb on May 21st.
That would never happen.
Never.
Never. All right, well, we want to thank Ethan for his time. I really appreciate you hopping on today and being able to give a presentation and talk about this topic. It's super important, and we just really appreciate your time today, Ethan.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for having me, and it was awesome to come on here and to get to talk about the world I live in. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hearing Riley on this domestic freight and Mexico border crossing. That sounds very interesting.
Hopefully we get somebody a little smarter than me to jump on and talk about that. That's our goal.
Oh, don't sell yourself short.
Definitely got to stay tuned to see what happens with that. Like I mentioned, our next episode will be May 21st, same time, 11 a.m. We'll be here with our coffees ready to chat with you. Be on the lookout for an email from me following this, where I'll give a link to this recording, as well as some information about Jackson County CASA and the Children's Place, the 2 great organizations that we mentioned at the top of the show today. Other than that, have a great rest of your day, and please come to us with all your questions and comments. We're always happy to help.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you.
Bye.